All right. Woo. Look. I got that wow. Who wants some hands up right now? We got that. Turn it up loud. I know you're wondering how. I got that wow. Here I go, coming. I can't ever stop. I'm a tour de force running. Get me to the top. I don't need an invitation.
Good morning. It's Bryan with DD214 Transport. Please like, subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications. Guys, come on in the house. Grab yourself a cup of coffee. Put your listening ears on, get a piece of paper, and listen up. Here we go. DOT BLITZ is next week. What does it mean to you? What are they looking for? You need to really watch this video. All right, so a little history. DOT BLITZ goes on every year. This year it's May 16th through the 18th. Last year they put 12,000 trucks out of service and 4,000 drivers. Do the math, okay? That's a lot. This year they are focusing on anti-lock braking systems and load securement. But don't let that distract you from everything that they're really looking for. Because what they're going to do is they're going to start looking, and if you pass your braking system, then according to everything I've read, they're going to go to the braking system, the cargo system, okay? That's the two they're going to focus on. Then coupling devices, driveline, drive shaft components, driver's seat, fuel and exhaust systems, frames, lighting devices, steering mechanisms, suspension, tires, wheels, rims, hubs, windshield wipers, and windshields, okay? They're going to go through your truck. That's what's happening. All right, so in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of the things they're going to be looking for with the two focus areas, okay? And I want you guys to understand that some of this stuff was kind of a surprise to me. I'm not a mechanic, and I saw some of the things in there, and I was like, oh, if I were a mechanic, I might have fixed it that way, and it's inappropriate. So stand by. We're going to watch this, and actually, we're going to do this. Before we get started, I want to thank all the veterans and first responders. Thank you for all you do and all you continue to do for this country. Thank you. All right, guys. So, one of the things I talk about first off is I got rode up one time, and it was for the breakaway cable hooked to the chain. And I always preach this because it seems intuitive that it would work. It doesn't work. You got to hook it to a puck system or something that is hooked to the truck itself. Okay? All right, so don't do that. Don't make my mistake. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the braking system. Okay, this is what they're going to be looking for with anti-lock brakes. With the anti-lock brakes, this is where they're going to start. They're going to go and they're going to check your dash. They're going to have you powered it off, and while they're watching, you're going to have to power it back on. And if your anti-lock braking system has a light on it, you're going to have an issue. They're going to give you a lecture. They cannot put you out of service for the anti-lock braking system having a light on the dash, okay? They're just going to give you a lecture. Now, understand this. If they try to put you out of service just for the anti-lock, that's no-no. Even in the service advisory, it says this is not an out-of-service condition. Now, what it does do, though, is it's going to open up hell's gate on your truck, and they're going to go through this thing with a fine-tooth comb. All right, so if you have that anti-lock braking light on, I highly recommend you get it fixed before the BLITZ. Okay, now as you go back through the brakes, okay, how they're looking at this is this, okay? On a Hotshot truck, for example, on my truck and trailer, I have 8 brakes, okay? There's 2 front, 2 back, 4 on the rear. So I have 8 sets of brakes. Now, 20% or 2 of those brakes can be out or not working and still not be placed out of service. That's per their guideline, okay? So if you have any of your brakes not working, you need to get it in the shop and get them fixed. That's just unsafe. But their allowance is 20%. Now, determining the number of brakes is like this. Whether the brakes are necessary or not, if they're on the truck, they got to be working. They got to be part of that. They're going to be counted in your 20%, okay? So as we go down through here, they're going to be looking, once they get under your truck, they're going to be looking for missing or brakes altogether, missing brake components, rust, excessive rust. And I'm reading this just so you understand. Whether you have drum cams that are broke for air brakes, if you have defective lining, 1/16th of a crack, 1/16th from the edge, and you're done. We get down to cracks or voids that exceed a 1/16th of an inch. That is a crack across your pad or a void that exceeds 1/16th of an inch, 1/16th of an inch. Cracks that exceed 1 1/2 inch in length. So a 1/16th of an inch deep and 1 1/2 inches long. Any portion of the brake lining that's missing is going to put you out of service like that. It's going to be part of that 20%. It's going to count against that. Okay. If your rotor is severely rusted, it's going to count against you. If the friction surface has oil or grease on it, it's definitely going to count against you. If your brake pad thickness is less than 1/16 or 1.6 millimeters to the wear indicator, there you go. All right, so we got an inspection bulletin. It's talking about hydraulic and electric brakes, and it says missing or broken caliper pad, retaining components, brake pad, shoes, or linings. All of that is going to be inspected. If it's wrong, or if it's missing, or if it's gone, or if it's broken, that's going to go toward your 20%. All right, movement of the caliper. They're going to get into this, guys. They're going to get in your truck, up under it, and look at it. And while they're under there, they're going to be looking at all this other stuff. You got a leaking seal, you got a cracked frame. What's going on with it, okay? All right, so whether your anchor plate, your caliper assembly, movement cannot exceed 1/8 of an inch. When they grab that and move it, it cannot exceed 1/8 of an inch. Rotor or drum has evidence. Rotor or drum has evidence of metal-to-metal contact on the friction surface. Rotor has severe rusting across the entire friction surface or on either side. The friction surface of the brake drum or rotor and the brake, okay? Think about this. The friction surface is where that pad comes into contact with the drum. If you've had an oil hub seal leaking or whatever, and it's got oil onto that brake surface, onto the pad, you're done. It's going to count against you. And again, 1/16 of an inch, Okay, now your front steering axles, your two front ones, are included in the 20% criteria. Okay, so now the following conditions will place a vehicle out of service. Any inoperable front brakes, okay, and when you're steering, will put you out of service, such as brake lining pad failing to move or contact the brakes, missing brake on either wheel of any steer axle of any vehicle equipped or required to be equipped with a steer axle brake, including dolly and front axle of a full trailer. Okay, so if for example, you see these FedEx going down the road, that's considered a front axle on that dolly. All right, so drum or cam brakes, mismatched air chambers. We don't have that on a Hotshot. I'm going to skip by that. And then, guys, look at your brakes. Okay, if you got any braking issue, get them fixed, because this is serious stuff right here. It's going to put you out. If any of those two front brakes are screwed up, you're gone. You're out of service. So, brake drums and rotors. We all have brake drums, okay? So, any portion of the drum has any external crack or has any crack that opens upon the brake application. So while they're under your truck or under your trailer or your truck, they're going to be with a flashlight and they're going to have you pushing on the brakes, applying the brakes to see them work. A rotor surface worn through. Any portion of the drum or rotor missing or in danger of falling away. Now, for you guys that have the electric over hydraulic, all right, we're looking at the master cylinder assembly, including the backup system power assist on power units, has any loose or missing mounting bolts. So missing mounting bolts. So if you don't know if you're missing a mounting bolt, you need to get up under there and look. The fluid level of the master cylinder reservoir is less than 1/4 full or below the minimum marking. Hydraulic or vacuum line hoses or connections are restricted or crimped. Again, in a few minutes, I'm going to put some pictures up here. Any observable seepage, bulge, or swelling of that line. Okay, think about that when you're in there inspecting it. Any swelling, leakage, seepage. Okay. Improper joining. This was the one I was telling you about in the beginning. The improper joining. I saw in one of the pictures, you'll see it. It's a metal line, and a piece of hose between them. That's considered improper joining. Any observable hydraulic leak, hydraulic fluid in the braking system of full application. You're going to be in there pumping these brakes, and they're going to be watching them. Okay. No pedal travel reserve with engine running upon full brake. Brake power assist unit is inoperative. Hydraulic power brake unit is inoperative. Brake failure warning system is missing or inoperative. Defective or inactive while the engine is running with or without brake application. The hydraulic brake backup system is inoperable. Now we have vacuum brakes, and it's all basically going to be the same, but it's going to apply to each braking system. Now, as I put these pictures up here, I want you to just take a look. This picture is absent an effective braking action. Well, of course it is. The brake liner's laid down underneath the vehicle. This one is basically missing any kind of brake, any kind of mechanics in there that would make that push against the hub is missing. This is absent an effective brake action. There's no drum. I mean, it's just a wheel with some brakes. Then we have an inoperable electrical system. That's a broken wire. You can see that. Missing brakes altogether. And you got a broken cam roller. When you come down, you look a little more, you're looking at a brake drum that's cracked. A broken brake drum. Look at it leaning against the shock. Another cracked brake drum. Cracked rotor, another cracked rotor, and another cracked rotor. If you look at these things, and you have to understand that these brakes, they may not have come apart this second, but they're about to. Continuing on, we have a cracked rotor. You can see how it's cracked. It's chipped off a piece right there. It doesn't really look like a crack. It looks more like a chip, but it's okay. They're calling it a crack. Next door to it is a different type of crack. This thing, the rotor is gone. That's the vent on there. And it says rotor worn through the vent. Now we got rotor worn to the vent. This through, this is to. This is a brake hose damaged. See, you can see the threads in that hose for a hydraulic line. It's gone. This is an air line, and it's damaged. I would say that in that particular case, you're going to hear air coming through that. Air is when you're running air brakes, air is a very, very sad sound because there's a problem. All right, so look here. Brake hose damaged. They call this as damaged. It's where it's been rubbing. Here it is again. Brake hose damaged through the reinforcement ply. This is all the way through it. Brake hose damaged through the reinforcement ply again. And you see the threads in these hoses. Brake hose damaged through a reinforcement ply again. You really don't see a lot of threads, but they're there. Brake hose through, and this is swelling here. Okay, if you'll look, you see this swelling on this line? That's a faulty hose. They're going to count that towards your 20%. All right, so you get an idea of some of the things you need to look for before you get on the road next week and make sure they're corrected or stay off the road. Either way, you need to have that stuff corrected. All right, next up is cargo securement. Cargo securement is a huge section, okay? Cargo securement not only includes how you have secured that load to your deck or in your trailer, but it also includes what you secured it with, all right? Is it over the load limit of that? Do you have enough per section? Is what you've connected it to on your trailer broken? Is the chain or binder or strap, are they broken? So we're gonna go through a few things here, and just understand that load securement is extremely important, and your load securement devices also have to be squared away. All right, so on your load securement, you have, this is how you've strapped this to your truck, okay? Articles not restrained from rolling or moving. Okay, in that case, they are going to put you out of service until you fix it. articles beside each other and secured by transverse tie downs. How this works is this. Let's say you have a big box, and I'll show you a picture, but let's say you have a big box and you have some rolls underneath, and you have two straps that's running over and down. Well, the big box takes the strap to here, okay? Everything you have under that is not secured. It is absolutely, and I'm going to show you that picture. You've outdone the load limit on what you're hauling's heavier than the load limit to what you've strapped it down with. All right, so some of these things you may not understand, but you got to understand them. And that is for example, there cannot be a knot in a strap. You cannot pinch a strap together. Once the strap is cut, man, just get rid of it. Straps are cheap. Everything you haul, whether it's logs, dress lumber, metal coils, paper rolls, concrete pipe, intermodal containers, whatever you're hauling, has a specific way that it needs to be secured. Every one of them. And that is something that it would take too long in this one video to go through, and we have to maximize by me telling you to go to the FMCSA load securement area and look at the particular thing you're hauling and then understand what it is. All right. Now, let's talk about your tied down defects. Okay, now we're looking at chains. When you look at your chains, you know, you never really think about a chain as being defective as long as it's connected, but DOT sees it differently. If you have a chain that is crimped or bent or bowed or twisted, that link is defective. Okay? Inspect your chains, every link, and make sure that it is in good working order. Because there is wear over time that happens to chains, where if so much of the piece is worn out, they're going to call it defective. You cannot have a knot in a chain, okay? You cannot. If you're, rolling something up, don't knot it up. Excessive wear causing 20% or more deduction in the original material thickness. Okay, they might bring out a miter gauge and sit there and look for 20%. They're going to see what the original thickness is and what the wear point is. Any weld on a chain to repair a broken dam, you cannot weld those back together, guys. You got to put you've got to put a chain repair kit on it. Now, I'm going to go through and talk about the chains a little more, and I'm going to show you some pictures here, tie down defects. And it's really, you really have to pay attention, because now look at something as simple as this chain bend. This is a bend in a chain, this first picture, and it is defective. They're going to count it as a defective device. This one, this next picture is of a stretched. Okay, that's where once you stretch it so far, it'll pinch in, and that's a pinched or stretched one. You have a cut in this chain link here, which is probably more than 20%. Would you notice it? Would you notice it? Let me ask you something. If I wasn't pointing that out, would you notice it? When's the last time you really went through and inspected your chains? Okay. All right, tie down. You can see on this one that the link is actually broken on this one. You should notice something like that. All right, so what they did on this one is actually tied a knot. Doesn't have a hook on the end of it. They just tied a knot in the chain. On this one, they have stretched it to the point that it's pinched. Okay. All right, so those are some examples of what they're going to be looking for. Now, inspect your chains. Understand that, you know, what you think is good and what they think is good is probably going to be two different things. So the next thing, if you use wire rope and any of that wire rope is frayed, it's bad. You need to cut it off and put new wire rope on. All right, so what they're looking for on wire rope, I don't use wire rope, so it doesn't affect me, but I am going to touch base with this. It says loose wire rope. Means the wire rope's not tight. Bird caging, pop cores, or knots in the working section of the wire rope. Discoloration or excessive heat or electric arc in the eye or main body of, of the wire rope. Corrosion with pitting of the external or internal wires. As you're looking at the end of the wire rope, it says more than 11 broken wires in 6 diameters of length. For example, 1/2 inch, 12.7 millimeter wire rope, more than 11 broken wires in 6 by 1/2 or 3 inches in length. I just don't use wire rope. More than 3 broken strands on any one strand. 3 broken wires on any one strand. More than 2 broken wires at an end connection or fitting. Note, repairs. Wire rope used in tie-down assemblies shall not be repaired by splicing. Okay, that's it. So now if you're using cordage, which is cords, you know, fiber rope, basically it can't be frayed or chafed, and you know, you really got to look at that. I don't use this type either. So they're going to be looking, if you're using it, they're going to be looking for excessive wear on any interior fibers or exterior fibers. It cannot have a knot in it. These guys have got a knot about knots. So, all right, so to the important one, what we mainly use, or what I mainly use in transportation, is synthetic webbing. All right, loose synthetic webbing. The tie down contains separations of its load carrying stitch pattern. All right, on the end of your webbing, you see the stitch pattern there that hooks into your hooks onto your ratchet. In that, if that is all tore up or it's coming apart, it's going to fail you. Tie downs contains a knot, man, or a repair of any kind. Any kind. All right. Okay, it says here that a fitting, tensioning device or other hardware other than the webbing is broken, obviously sprung, bent, twisted, or contains visible cracks or significant nicks or gouges. Now that's in your ratchet strap. Again, so the tie down contains separation of its load carrying stitch pattern in excess of 1/4 of the total stitch area. Okay, so here's some examples. The tie down contains cuts, burns, or holes through the webbing which total more than that shown in the defective class table. Okay? Now, on your cuts, they are looking at a 1/2 inch. On your burns and so forth, on a 4-inch strap, okay, on a 4-inch strap, you got 3/4 of an inch. On a 3-inch strap, you have 5/8 of an inch. On a 2-inch strap, you have 3/8. And on a 1 3/4 inch strap, you have 3/8. So understand that if you're running straps that's got cuts in it, throw them away. They're $11. Okay, throw that stuff in the trash. If it's got any cut in it, throw it in the trash. They're just gonna get you on it. Period. So now here's the one thing too. Let's say you have a tarp on your trailer and you have it secured by an old strap that you took out of service. Guess what? They'll put you out of service for it. Why? Because whether it's needed or not, it's containing something on the trailer that if it fails, it could blow off. Don't do it. Make sure your straps are good. So all cuts, burns, and other holes through the webbing are additive across the width of the strap face for the entire effective area. So if you have a 1/16 of an inch here, say you're on a how this works is like this. You have your strap is this long. On this piece you have a 1/16 of an inch. On this piece you have a 1/16 of an inch. On this little piece you have another little nick of a 1/16 of an inch. And then on down you have 2 more. Well, that's over the maximum allowable. So they're gonna put you out. Okay? So it's across the entire face of the usable piece. It's not just if it's rolled up and not in use, they're not going to count that, but they're going to count everything within that first 102 inch minimum. All right. So again, repairs in the webbing are not allowed. Do not do it. All right, so here are some pictures. They're going to just count these as defective, and it's going to be an unsecured load. So here are the pictures. You can see here that's a 2-inch cut. I'm just going to kind of flop them through here real quick. And by the way, if you have things that's going to cut your or damage your strap, don't use, put something between you and it. You know, throw a chain over it, because if it's going to cut that strap, you're going to get caught with it. You can guarantee it. And it's not going to be safe. And guys, you hear me preach about safe. Safety, safety, safety. And this is what I want you to do, is every time you load something, every time you secure something, I want you to think about it and think, would I want my child, would I want my kid, my grandchild, my niece, my nephew, my mom, my dad, riding along this vehicle when it's going down the road? Is it safe? Okay? Think about it. Use that as your marker. Is it safe enough for your child or your grandchild, your mom, your dad, to be behind or to the side of you, or maybe even to the front of you. Okay, so think about this kind of stuff. All right, so here are some more tie downs. You can see it's plainly, it's very, very simple. And some of these you can see that's been cut en route. Those rocks are what cut that one in particular. You have a knot in this one, defective tie down here, and again, knots. You cannot have a knot. Do not knot anything. Do not repair anything. Throw it in the trash. People ask, how many do I carry on my truck? And I'll tell you now, I carry 12 2-inch in the trailer. And I have about 25, maybe 30 in the box of my truck, because I want to make sure that if I have something that fails, that I can replace it right there and I don't have to fool with it. I normally don't throw the ratchets away, but I do go through a lot of webbing, hooks. So now, let's say, for example, you're running a chain and a binder. Not only are they going to check the chain, but they're going to check the binder. And then they're going to check what your binder's connected to. Okay? So if you've got the binder connected to a rubber rail, and that rubber rail is cracked, you're out of service. You're done. Okay? And this is what they're telling right here. It's fitting attachment tensioning devices. Obvious reduction of the section through wear or corrosion. Obvious distorted or stretched load binders and fittings. Okay? If this stuff is stretched, it is now weakened. Hooks opened in the throat beyond the original parallel throat opening. Okay, at some point, if that's happened, it has been tightened to the point that it's failed. Okay, and in that, you need to get it fixed. Replace it. It's no fixing it. Replace it. Any missing required components. Obvious twisting out of the plane of the fitting. A fitting tensioning device or other hardware is broken, obviously sprung, bent, twisted, contains a visible crack or significant nick or gouge. Welding or discoloration from excessive heat. Note, some winches are designed to be welded to the truck. Now, if they're looking at that, they're looking for any visible cracks. Any slippage detectable at a wire rope clamp. Wire ropes normally have a clamp. They come back on themselves, and that's where they get their hooks. Okay, that's how they get their hooking area. Now, if you've hooked to a wire rope and it slips, you can see the slip because it'll be discolored, and they're going to look at that. Okay, so if that clamp has slipped, this end down here will be one color, and this end here will be a different color because it is not weathered the same. Okay, end fittings may be replaced by clevis devices. Okay, all right. So anchoring points. Anchoring points is on your trailer. Like I use the D-ring mounts. Okay, I've inspected all mine. Broken or cracked side or pocket rails, supports or welds. Okay, so if you have a broken weld, you're going to get dinged. All right, so with mine, my D-rings slide into my rail and it has a pin. All right, so I went through, I pulled all the D-rings, I looked at anything that could have a crack in it, and you know, there you go. Rails that are bent or distorted where hooks or fitting attached. Floor rings, nicked, gouged, or worn twisted, bent, stretched, or with broken welds. Now, this is in the book, and it says, this is an officer asking this. It says, when should a violation be recorded for damaged tie downs? When should a violation be recorded for damaged tie downs? And this is the answer. All tie downs being used to secure cargo, whether they are required or not, that are damaged to the extent outlined in the out-of-service cargo securement defect table will be recorded as a violation. All other tie downs with damage not yet to that extent will not be recorded. So if you, for example, you got a 1.5 inch cut in a tie down, they're going to record it. If you have 1/8 of an inch cut, they're not. That's how it's going to work. Don't roll the dice, guys. So understanding that if you give these officers, and understand that they're doing their job. This is their job. This is what they're required to do. And this is what, I think it's a good thing, because you've got a lot of guys out there that's running, unsafe equipment or improper load securement. And with that, your family's at risk. And if your family's at risk, in my opinion, if it's my kid riding down the road, I don't want this guy on the street. So guys, look at this kind of stuff and get ready, because it's coming next week, and it'll come every year. And you should make this part of your pre-trip and everything else. But I've got some pictures here at the end that I'm going to show you guys concerning load securement and what is improper. And, a lot of this stuff is not going to apply to us hotshots, but, a lot of it will. So please take your time, go through your stuff, take 30 minutes out and go through all your gear and make sure it's squared away. Because probably there's some unwritten challenge out there to beat 12,000 trucks out of service and 4,000 drivers out of service this year. Okay, so you got your work cut out for you this week. Thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, hit the little bell for notification. Go over and check us out on Facebook. If you need mentorship, try the Patreon site. If you're looking to lease on, or you're looking to get dispatch service, we have that as well. Reach out to us. And we love you, mean it. Have a great week. You got your work cut out. Let's do it. Thanks. It's Bryan with DD214. See you next time.
So evil, it's changing my nature. Still I'm so appalled, you thought I couldn't get at you. Oh, it's looking bleak, there's blood in the streets. Oh, a treat for the freaks, defeating the beast. Oh, it's been weeks, at least there's moments of peace. Oh, increase the heat. I wanna watch it burn. Burn. Come on, burn it down. Okay, burn. Burn. You with me? Burn it I wanna watch it burn. I don't back down from anyone. Back down from anything. Of all my foes, you a little one. The pressure at all, it's an easy thing. I know the
Manual recording will now start.